our force readiness is impacted by COVID-19. It affects the ability for us to train, it affects the ability for us to attract soldiers and to get them into basic training, and it affects our ability to run missions.
So the problem we had with the pandemic and the illness is that it would wipe out potentially an entire formation, and not only now for this pandemic, but for illnesses in the future. So what we wanted to do was provide information to leaders that they can make smarter decisions and isolate who really needs to be quarantined or tested.
Contact tracing is when someone gets infected, the medical staff will reach out and say, well, who is that person around? Who could potentially be infected, to help figure out exactly who they should test next, who they should isolate and potentially quarantine. That's what spawned this idea, is how can we use some form of technology to help us with proximity logging so that we can help our medical professionals and contact tracing do a more thorough job.
People don't have a real clear memory of who they met with over the last several days and for how long and how close they were. So the proximity logging device helps with that. It knows not who the person was, but what the device number was.
That's the beauty of proximity logging. It enhances contact tracing. You can't afford to have no-fail missions already compromised by people who were sick. If you look at our equipment in the Army, from vehicles to weapon systems, they're highly sensorized. We want to know exactly what's going on with them. We want to know what the status and health of the system is, and we spend a lot of money doing that. We have done very little of that with soldiers. The second I was in touch with West Point, they were almost simultaneously in touch with me, saying, we want to participate with technology solutions that are going to help protect our cadets in a manner that is appropriate for the Army in general. What a great spot to try new technology. It's relatively closed, controlled, with a highly motivated population that is intelligent, interested in technology, and willing to participate.
We ended up going out to senior leaders within the Army and asking if a phone would work for contact tracing. Is that the fit and form factor, something we want to carry? And they across the board said, no, we don't want to have to carry a second phone or a phone.
They said, we're not giving them a phone, and we don't want them to be carrying their phones on exercises if we don't want them to. And there's basically two other places that you can put technology on a soldier: the wrist and over the eyes. And we chose the wrist.
In our market research, we found a device that was similar to what we wanted to do, and we were able to modify it and leverage it at a reasonable cost.
So West Point's sort of the ideal place to test out some of this technology, because with the COVID-19 protocols, they are currently locked down on West Point. They're all around each other all the time. And so if they all have these watches on, we really get a high fidelity of what those interactions are, where they're happening.
The only people that know who is wearing the device is the medical community. Additionally, the devices do not track GPS location, so it would just say that they were within 6 feet of each other for how many minutes.
The only people who have the key are the medical professionals. So we're not tracking individual people. It's only used on an individual basis when we have a positive COVID test.
The interesting thing is what we started finding was that we had subject matter experts in the reserve component that really weren't being leveraged for what they did in their civilian jobs and their network of people they knew.
And we could sort of find that best solution, which what's out there that's working in industry, what do we need done in the Department of Defense or in the Army, how can we combine those two things together to figure out the best possible solution for soldiers.
The benefit of the 75th is we don't have an acquisition budget. We're not able to manage or run a program. But what we can do is support a stakeholder. In this case, the 75th played a critical part in this proximity logging limited user test at West Point.
I've never been disappointed with working with the 75th. I wish we could do way more of it. There's an environment to be created here where people can come up with all sorts of uses depending on what your job is in the military.
And something like this, there's no playbook. There's no way to say, oh, we need this solution, let's get there.
But if we can create what I like to say is the foundational layers for privacy and the maneuvering of data, then all the applications that come after that are for the taking. If you get that part right, the imagination and creativity can just blossom from there.